Welcome to another episode of the R&B show. Today is probably, we're going to keep it short, hopefully, but today's going to be a heated topic, a heated debate, no doubt, where you're going to see grown men yelling, screaming, throwing things, crying. There might be crying.
There'd definitely be crying.
Bruce, there might be, because I want to take us, I'm going to go, you want us to keep it short. I'm going to go straight to the core. We have a fan, right? Like our one fan right now. God bless him. What's his name?
Michael Nolan. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so he's been so great, and he said something. You sent me the comment that he made, and I really appreciate it. He's like, "You guys are so lucky to have each other," and I want to say something about that. We don't have each other. You know, we've known each other for so many years now, and I love you, Bruce. I love you very much. You're my favorite, but and I'm grateful. But there was a split that happened. Okay, we might have had each other, and then 2017 happened. And the barrage of insults and angry texts that I got from you, Bruce, it made me hold my hand over my heart for a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean from The Last Jedi to Rise of the Stunt Walker, the Stilt Walker, as the Skywalker, to 2 years. I held my hand over my heart, and I never came away the same when I saw so much animosity from you. And what was it for? Was because we disagreed at first, but then we ended up agreeing about The Last Jedi. And I bring this up because we have the new trailer of the Obi-Wan, and I think it's a great way for us to talk about when things went off the rails and where we're at today with Lucasfilm.
For sure. And I guess, Ron, we'll have to just, I guess we could just attribute it to me having my Batman versus Superman moments. I mean, I'm sure you're very aware of that type of vulnerability and fandom. So,
Yes.
You went through it, you know what it's like. So now here we find ourselves, and hopefully better footing. Obviously, based on our last review, you're in a good place with DC films. You're happy about the direction.
Bruce, this is legit right now. Thank you for see, this is grown men talking about their feelings about important things. Bruce, I think I hear you, I see you, and I thank you. That was really cool that you said that, actually. That makes a lot of sense to me, that you had a Batman versus Superman BVS moment. Okay, now I
well, you know when it hit me, hearing you talk about when you were doing the retrospective on the DC stuff, and I almost interjected it then. Yeah. But then, we just kind of went off, and continued talking about the Batman film. But I'm like, for all the crap Ron gives me about the Last Jedi stuff, you definitely had your own meltdown, your own your own geek meltdown. So
did I talk to you back then though, when I saw that movie? I renounced religion. I'm not religious to begin with, but I went crazy.
Yeah, I don't think we were texting as often, but I heard about it since, and I know what your kind of reaction was. Yeah. Based on some of the conversations we've had. So,
and that was the case with Last Jedi, right? Like for a lot of people, I was actually, we've talked about this before, but I don't know if it was on the show, but I was late to the game. I saw that thing 3 times before I was like, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable." And I don't know what it was. I think it was I was in a mind control. I was like, well, it's a Star Wars movie. I'm just happy to be here. I was so naive, and I think we I don't want to say all of us were, but there was this it was so new and exciting back then. The fact that we were getting Star Wars movies every year, and I thought Force Awakens was good. I know it's rehashed and all that. And then we get Rogue One. I know that was the last 5 minutes was great. And right. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy for the ride. And yeah, Poe is being silly on the phone with Admiral Hux. And he's like, I'll just wait. I was like, okay, it's different. I respect. I was trying to be open-minded, and you were not having it from the jump. You were insulted from the jump, from the get-go.
Yeah, I saw right through it. Although it's funny because when you see other YouTubers, you had this whole kind of platoon of YouTube hardcore Star Wars fans that went into that film and were almost afraid to admit it at first, because you see their initial reviews where they're trying to be positive about it, and then maybe a week or so later you saw the immense backlash of people kind of redoing their reviews, rethinking their opinions about it, and I guess facing up to what their real feelings were about it. It's tough as a fan to admit it, kind of like we did with the prequels, where there was a little bit of that denial. And I think, definitely with Last Jedi, for me, it was an immediate thing right away. It felt off from the jump. So,
Well, because it's, you know, and this is what I kind of want to talk about as we go into Obi-Wan. What we're really, in my opinion, what we're really talking about ultimately is that we are like, there was something in our childhood, in our youth, where, you know, innovation versus renovation, right? Star Wars is really renovation, right? Like it's renovating old tropes, it's renovating old ideas, mythos, heroism, the hero's journey, all the things, right? It's renovating that. It's not, it didn't invent it. I mean, George studied with
Joseph Campbell.
Joseph Campbell. Every time I'm on this show, I like blank out Joseph Campbell, right? So he was a direct student of Joseph Campbell's. It's a direct iteration of all these tropes. However, from a technological standpoint and from a visual standpoint, it felt like innovation, right? Like he pushed the boundaries. ILM is created. I mean, I still, I mean, like when I show my daughter Empire Strikes Back and we see Hoth, like those AT-AT walkers, like they're phenomenal. Like,
yeah.
And especially maybe because it's like the redo, so they like maybe smooth out some of the lines. But I don't know, man. Like as when we were kids, like I know you were obsessed with Ewoks. Right, but it was something. It was so innovative. It was so different, and it like captures this like perfect zeitgeist for us as kids. And I can't help but think that, like, you know, that first night. Do you remember? Like we're jumping around, but you know how we like to do. We like to open this up.
Yeah.
That first night in 1999. I don't remember the date, but May it was probably May of 1999.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, opening night of Phantom Menace. And was it like, well, you know, like sex is sex, right? Like, I'm happy just to be having it, like, you know, right? Or were you like, ew?
You know, I think, and we had touched upon this before, you know, I was already aware of some of the bad reviews. So I think I had lowered my expectations to where I went out of it. You know, there was those mixed feelings and stuff like that, but it wasn't at least for me initially, the disaster that I was expecting based on, you know, kind of the avalanche of bad reviews. You go back and watch it now and it's a train wreck. But I remember walking out of there and I was like, well, you know, maybe it was, again, my own denial, lying to myself kind of thing, wanting to like it, you know, just as a lifelong fan and having waited so many years for that, finally getting those prequels. And then, you know, subsequently we would see that it was just the beginning of a long train wreck for George.
Such a train wreck, right? Because like, and it's funny that even the creator couldn't capture that lightning in the bottle that I think we were all yearning for. Like there was some aspects of it. Like I remember when they get to Tatooine and you're like, I was like, oh, here we go. Something I'm familiar with, like a world I'm from, or even when they take out their lightsabers right in the beginning, right? And you're like I, you know, I will say, and I've heard other podcasters talk about it, that like some of those fights in Phantom Menace are pretty damn good. Like,
sure,
they don't get as twirly. Like by the time they get into Revenge of the Sith, it's just ballet. I mean, there's so many twirls that make no sense. Like, why are you like, you know?
Yeah.
But some of those fights are pretty good. And so even that like the minute that they take out their lightsabers in that first scene in the smoke, and you're like, oh, here we go. Like there was something familiar about it, but then the rest of the movie was so far off the tracks, like all the political stuff and all that. So it was like the beginning of Star Wars moving away from what my opinion of it was, what I thought it should be and all that, right? And so, and I think we've just subsequently, it's just gotten worse. Like it's gotten so far off the track. But like where Lucasfilm has kind of come back, like for me as a dad, I think they did a great job with Clone Wars. Like that felt straight up Star Wars. Like some of those like episodes are phenomenal, and it's just great storytelling. It's Filoni at his best, and you know, Last Jedi, Solo, so which is not a bad movie, but like Solo is not. It's just like all these movies that, and then Rise of the Skywalker, like I think it's moved so far, even with the fan service of Rise of the Skywalker, the essence has moved so far away from that which we loved, and that's that which I think we are yearning for. And you, in my opinion, tell me, and I'll shut up, I promise, but like, don't you feel that like in some form or another, like Lucasfilm with hiring Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, that they're desperate to get that lightning in the bottle back? They are like, it's full fan service. They are just like trying to manipulate and like turn the screws. So look, this is the thing you love. Like this is the thing you grew up with. I swear. Look, right? Do you feel that that's where they're going with this whole thing?
Yeah, you can see that in the aftermath of Rise of Skywalker and the kind of the relative box office failure of that there was a lot of rethinking at Lucasfilm, and if not at Lucasfilm, definitely at Disney. You know, whether it was Bob Iger bringing the hammer down, and you know now the folks that are in charge. But I think there was a big rethink, and you can see that because you know all of the stuff that was planned, including He Who Shall Not Be Named trilogy that was supposed to be in the works, all that stuff got scrapped, right? So they moved from like all these what were supposed to be some future tentpole film releases to at least initially mostly a streaming model with you know Disney Plus kicking in and all of that. So which actually is a good lead into us talking about Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan in a way what we're getting now is a byproduct of many things that happened. One was you had the backlash from Last Jedi, which spilled over into the box office of Solo. So it made them rethink in terms of like individual character films, which is what Obi-Wan was initially supposed to be. Rethinking that, I think Boba was initially supposed to be also a standalone film. That obviously got a rethink, and they kept elements of that, which were used for The Mandalorian. Moved a lot of stuff.
And I should say not used for the Book of Boba Fett.
Right, I know. It was mostly used. It's like they took all the best character pieces and just when they remolded this new character, this kick-ass, you know, Mandalorian character, and they had nothing left over for the actual Boba Fett character himself. So they're going through this rebuilding process. Obviously, bringing Favreau, Filoni in, you have, I guess, at least a more stable creative nucleus now running things, for better or worse. I still think that what Lucasfilm is doing is they're, in a way, making the same mistake that DC initially did, is that they're chasing the Marvel model. You can see that they're doing that similar kind of world building instead of, I guess, kind of finding a new path, which is, I guess, the much harder challenge, although DC seems to be rising to that occasion. But anyway, so that brings us to where we are with Obi-Wan, which is, you know, we have the goodwill from the Mandalorian, a little bit of a fumble with Book of Boba Fett. So I guess jury's out as far as how this is going to deliver. But let me ask you, Ron, because I think I mentioned in our last video, theoretically, we're getting something that we both should like on paper, right? Because you and I are not so much big on the space battles or a lot of the action stuff. We've always been big on the Jedi philosophy and the Jedi stories. So in theory, we're getting that, right? We're also getting a chance to revisit the prequel, but potentially under better direction, you know, and a better creative team to maybe get better performances out of, you know, Ewan was always good, but I think it's a nice chance to potentially give Hayden Christensen a redemptive moment. But having said that, your honest reaction to the trailer, good, bad, indifferent, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like, so it's not a good sign when the only thing that I was like, oh, right on, is when I see an Inquisitor, because like the you know, the guy with like the the helmet and the cool lightsaber. I just think that's cool because of Clone Wars, because of Rebels, not Clone Wars, sorry, because of Star Wars Rebels, which I think is a great series. And they have Inquisitors in that, and I think, and then the game, the recent Star Wars game that came out. That to me is like, Ewan is such a great actor. Ewan McGregor is phenomenal in this role. I know some people are just so excited for him, but I don't think he's given a shit. Like I've seen so many interviews with him where he's like, look, it's one of many parts that I've played. Like he doesn't seem to be like obsessed with this character. Whereas like, I'm going to jump here and say like Andrew Garfield, like you show me that he has a cameo in Morbius and I'll be like, I'm going to go to Morbius just for that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, that guy loves this character. He, you know, he wants it. Like he wants another shot. He got his shot taken. Did Ewan get his shot taken? He was the best thing about those movies. And I think in every one of those movies, he shines. And especially in Revenge of the Sith, I think he owns the third act of that movie.
Yeah. So
it's like, do I need an Obi-Wan movie? No, it's also, I will say this, it's also hard for my brain to understand. So I'm excited for Hayden. I'm like, of course I'm excited for him to go against Darth Vader, like for Obi-Wan to go, but didn't we do that? Like, there's one line in New Hope where he goes, I haven't felt that presence since, and then he walks off. Is that what we're, is that it? But no, it's not. You know, it's not. Like, it's bullshit. Like, it's backpedaling, it's backtracking, it's reimagining. It's like, what is it like?
It's problematic, isn't it, in a way, right? Because
Yeah.
when you think about it, like, they're supposed to have rumors. They're supposed to have not only one, but like two confrontations.
Oh, two now?
in this
I heard one.
Yeah, no, it's two.
Wow. Okay.
So they have two confrontations, right? So when you, it really, at least for what we know of the original trilogy, at least what you thought you knew, it goes so contrary to that, because it seems like their last confrontation was what happened in Revenge of the Sith. So obviously they're going to play a little bit hard, fast, loose, you know, with the facts, which, you know, depending on how they do it, if they deliver a great story, you know, that somehow justifies it, you go with it. But otherwise, it's kind of, it's a little bit troubling.
With all the retconning, and that's, you know, with like, to your point of like fudging what we know as facts, because we've been with this material since 77, 80, and 83, right? So like, I joined on board in 83, but like, since I've had a lot of time with this material, as I know other fans have as well, and it's like, you go, then don't force me to care. Like, don't force me to feel like this is a big deal. It's not a big deal, you know? Now, if you wanted to do an Inquisitor show with Cal, the character from the recent video game, that'd be cool. Like, I don't, but there's no, it's not a buildup. It's like, it doesn't feel like this epic, Ewan McGregor's coming back. I just don't think Star Wars has that power anymore. Do you? Like, where it's like, it doesn't feel like an event anymore. Just like,
not for I think old school fans. Well, I shouldn't speak for all old school fans, but like for me, and I think you feel it too, in the sense that it seems like it's moved on, right? Like a lot of properties in a way that need to rebuild, and you need to rebuild an audience. You know, I think Kathleen Kennedy initially, she wasn't even discreet about the fact that she felt she didn't owe anything to fans of the original trilogy. So I think a lot of it, and she said so. So I'm not like speaking out of turn. It's actually in, you know, in an interview she did somewhere, I forgot where. So I feel like that's not a priority, obviously, because you have to rebuild a young audience. So it's a little bit past us. And even with the prequel stuff, it might be a little bit past us. It's, you know, a little bit more for that younger prequel audience, and definitely those that follow, you know, like the Clone Wars series, which, you know, you did. So I'm surprised you're not a little bit more excited.
And because I'll tell you why, and that's the point, is that, and there's two things I like, because the point is, to me, this is a sequel to the Clone Wars, especially with Filoni, and, you know, like, to me, it's more that, and they're trying to make me feel like it's a sequel to Revenge or Return of the Jedi, even. Right?
Oh,
like,
okay.
because to me, I'm always like, what I liked about Mandalorian, and it's like, I do care more. I care more about that time period. Like, all this time jumping, the future, all I care about is what happens after Return of the Jedi. And that first season and second season of Mandalorian, I thought was really cool, because you got to see what's happening next.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's cool. I'm into that. And then with this thing, this is a sequel to Clone Wars. So like, that's not my era. That's not my jam, you know, like, and my kid doesn't really care. Like, she liked Clone Wars at the time, and then she loved Ahsoka. And then I showed her Ahsoka live action Rosario Dawson, and she's like, oh, it's not my thing, you know? So as a family, like, we've kind of moved on in a way. But I think, you know, this is hard for me to say. And this is where the fighting might start. I get where Kathleen Kennedy's coming from. Here we go. Now I'm going to get text from you. But, you know, and I say this as a reformed Zack Snyder, not fan, but like a reformed respecter of what Zack Snyder did with the Justice League, not with anything else. Because when we saw so BVS, there was a director's cut that was much better. And I was devastated when I went to see BVS, and then I saw Civil War, and Civil War is phenomenal. And I was like, why can't my people do that? You know, like, why can't they do that in my home? And then a few months after that came out the director's cut, where they added like 45 minutes or something. And it was such a better movie. And it was actually interesting. It was not a great movie. It wasn't like a really well-directed movie, but it was a better movie. And I was like, oh, that's cool. we now like so having gotten over that and then seeing the Frankenstein that was the Justice League movie, and then seeing last year when the 17-hour Zack Snyder version came out, and it was interesting. And I go, in a world where we are consumed with so much media at all times, and I've heard other podcasters talk about this, in a world where we're consumed with so much media, I don't like whatever I'm watching right now doesn't have to be the thing that I watched when I was 7, and it doesn't have, it's not a forever thing. Like nothing feels forever now because they're going to reboot it again next week. The only thing that they're not actively rebooting is Back to the Future. Right, but everything else is fair game, it seems. Lethal Weapon was, you and I talk about Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon was a TV show a few years ago with Damon Wayans. Like, right, so everything is like fair game. Karate Kid, my daughter and I just watched the Jaden Smith Karate Kid. Like everything is fair game. Or I love Cobra Kai, right? So I go. There's something interesting. Had they stuck with their guns, he that shall not speak his name. He still thinks. By the way, he still thinks that. He still thinks he's getting a trilogy. I've seen.
I don't buy it.
I know I don't buy it either, but he still talks about it like he's our friend. Ryan's our friend.
I almost feel like it's one of those press things that he's got to keep saying. But I think time will bear out. I don't ever see that happening.
But if they had stuck with that, right? If they had stuck with the dude, there's some
like double down on his creative
double down.
For it.
Even kept him on for Return of the Skywalker. What's it called?
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. Even if they kept him for that, just closed out the chapter, right? Then it's like unanimously the thing. Just like Zack Snyder's Justice League was its own thing, and now we can have a reboot of Batman, right? If they had just closed it out with him, there were some interesting setups, which is that anyone can be a Jedi. So now we're like, okay, like that's. But dude, this is a world where anyone could, I mean, think about it. Like the Anakin thing with the midichlorians, like that's random as hell, but that's an example of a random kid who was a Jedi. Like, I don't mean anyone can be a master Jedi like Rey. I mean, without the training. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like the kid with the broom and stuff, right? And that Rey is not like anyone special. She's not a Skywalker. They literally like her being a Palpatine. I can't even talk about this seriously. Like it's so ridiculous. Whereas if they had just stuck with it and gone to bat with it, I would respect them more because then they made a choice.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because then they would have at least done the DC thing of like trying to at least carve out their own path and committed to it. But when you have when you have this sort of reaction to it that they had, it's a tough sell doing that. And even with this Obi-Wan series, you can almost see the line of thought where it's like, okay, we have a chance to bring Ewan McGregor back. Great, because everyone would like to see that. Standalone Obi-Wan film. Sounds good. If you're going to do like, if we were still back in 2016, 2015 world, Rogue One world where, the standalones were doing well, okay, you have that opportunity. But then it's like, okay, you bring Obi-Wan back. Well, what's the story, right? And so then you have to ask, do you bring Vader back? And then if you do bring Vader back, to what degree do you bring Vader back? So it becomes this sort of, you're falling down the rabbit hole where it's like, where we get what we're getting, which is, it might be even too much Vader Obi-Wan, but that's, you kind of, I guess if you're going to do it, you have to go whole hog on it.
And none of it matters. Like none of
Not
it
really.
matters. Think about it. Nothing.
Not really, because we know, the thing is too, I mean, and I guess you could make the same argument with any kind of prequel story, but we know where the story's going, right? So it's like, what's ultimately the real suspense? What's the real, payoff? I mean, now let me ask you this in terms of like, was there anything about it? Okay, so you had the Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Like visually or just stylistically, anything about it you think, the creative could be good on this, or does it just look like, okay, what they've been basically cranking out past 4 years or so?
I feel bad because I'm like, I don't mean to lift, but it's how I feel. Like I listened to the Movie Film podcast, and the host, I think he said something. It was so funny. That's what I heard. At least he's like, we need. Oh my God, wouldn't it be awesome to spend more time in Tatooine? Like he said something like that, and it's like, no, we just spent so much time in Tatooine. Like,
I'm about to say it wasn't sarcasm, huh?
No, it was like, I mean, it was sarcasm. Yeah, he was kidding. Like it was like so funny, right? So now we're spending more time on Tatooine. Like, do we need it? We just spent Book of Boba Fett. Like, we spent all this time, and it's like,
apparently the story, and that was the problem, like with the early, I guess, scripts or whatever. And this is another bad sign because Kathleen Kennedy halted production on this show to you kind of put her creative, I guess, ideas forth. So that's another potentially bad sign. But that was the argument, is that they didn't want another, okay, it's basically Mandalorian, someone protecting a child on a desert world. So apparently a lot of it does take place off world. So that's one thing that we will see in this.
Let me ask you a hard question then, along these lines.
Yeah.
And I just saw Solo again, and it's really not a bad movie except for that robot, which that's Kathleen Kennedy. Like that's like anyway. And again, I'm whatever. Moving forward. Let me ask you a hard question. What if they had, like, with the Mandalorian, let's say with season 1 of Mandalorian, if they had pulled a 2009 Star Trek, where they're like, what was it, the Calvin era or whatever, right? Like they split it. I'm not as big in Star Trek, but like where they split the timeline, where they go like where there's this time, like Flashpoint, like they go back in time and they change the timeline. Now it's like now they can redo everything. I'd be okay with that.
I think a lot of people would be okay with that, although it doesn't look like we're getting that.
No.
Now, here's the thing. A lot of people thought that we were potentially going to get that in the episode of Book of Boba Fett, where Grogu has the choice. He's there with Luke, and he has the chance to choose the armor, the chain armor, or the lightsaber. And they figured if he chose the lightsaber, then it goes contrary to what happens in the sequel trilogy, and that we're going to do some kind of revision there. I didn't think so. As long as Kathleen Kennedy's still in charge, there's no way that they're going to change anything about that sequel trilogy. But a lot of fans thought that that was going to be the creative way that Favreau and Filoni did that, and then somehow changed things in an alternate timeline. Now, of course, I'd be fine with it because, what we got in the sequel trilogy, especially the disrespect to our legacy characters, was, I still can't comprehend that, that was okayed. But it doesn't look likely.
So disrespectful. Like, it's just like, again, we don't need fan service, just respect.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that they are working towards is potentially doing the Thrawn trilogy, the Timothy Zahn stuff, Heir to the Empire. It looks like that's kind of what they're working towards, making that canon, because how they initially, when under this new regime of Lucasfilm, they decanonized all the books and stuff like that. But it looks like they are bringing that, that Thrawn story in. And it looks like they have really doubled down on using the CGI versions of the OT characters. So how they pull that off, I don't know, but it seems like that's what they're doing in order to sort of give us the reunion of the OT characters, the original trilogy characters, Han, Luke, and Leia, that we didn't get any of in the sequel trilogy. So, and
Thrawn is also a character on Rebels. So they started introducing, like, they brought him, they kind of inserted him in Rebels.
Yeah.
So they've baked him into the fabric of this, like, and that was one of the cool, right? Like that was when they started doing it, was back then. So so I'm just thinking out loud. I'm like, right, that's when they started like canonizing some things.
Yeah.
I like, do you think, let me ask you, do you think Qui-Gon is going to make an appearance?
I do. I think it'd be very hard to pull off Obi-Wan show and not have at least some appearance for that. So I think that should definitely be in there in some form or another. They've kept it very quiet. Liam Neeson's been very, I guess, discreet about his involvement, kind of sidestepping questions about that, and like, any chance of you being in that? I haven't been asked, that kind of thing, that kind of BS that you tell people. Basically the same BS that Ewan gave us all these years, even though he knew he was going to be doing this, revisiting this character. So I could see that. I mean, it's, if you're telling this sort of prequel era story, and such a huge part of that, it was that relationship, I definitely see that.
Well, and Yoda sets it up like in Revenge of the Sith, like he's going to teach you how to be a Force ghost, right?
Yeah.
But look at how much we're straining. Like, we're straining for it. Like, I'm straining for anything I care about. Like, because it doesn't matter. We know that he was a Force ghost. Like, we know that Obi-Wan will become a Force ghost. What do I need to see it for? We know that Luke had like maybe an interaction with him when he was a kid, to the point where he goes, "Oh, old Ben Kenobi," like he says, like, but like, I got it. Like, what am I looking for? Like, what should I feel here? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what, I think we're straining. Like, Qui-Gon, Darth Vader, like, that sounds awesome, but it's not. Like, because it means nothing.
Yeah, I think the best thing that we're going to get out of this is that with you and having been the best part of the prequel trilogy, but always being a side player, it's really just getting a chance to showcase that character a little bit more fully, and maybe giving us a better sense of closure with that than we got with the prequel trilogy. I mean, depending on, again, it really all hinges on the creative. I haven't seen enough from Deborah Chow to really have faith one way or another. With the trailer, it was more of a teaser, so they really didn't give you much. It was just kind of introducing a few little elements here and there. So there really isn't a lot to go by. I think a lot of it is ultimately, it's just going to be watching the series itself and seeing how it unfolds. And I think you'll know a couple episodes in whether it has that magic or not. I'm going in there I'm very sort of neutral on it, which is a sad thing, because it speaks to what I guess the state of affairs is.
Well, you said it. I mean, this idea of, and then I'll wrap it up, but like you said, closure, right? Like,
yeah.
My ex-wife told me a few months ago, she's like, what the best part about trying to get closure with a ghost is? Because we were talking about like how we're in a better place now in life, like financially, career-wise. And I was like, oh, I wish that, I'm like, I have this we're really good friends, so I can talk to her about these things. I'm like, I wish I could go back in time when we were struggling financially and doing all these things. And I wish that we could, that me now could have some time with that version of you. And she's like, yeah, she's so funny. She's like, what's great about getting closure with a ghost? I'm like, what? She's like, you can't, so you just got to let it go. And I was like, oh, like, well said. Yeah, right. Like, you cannot get closure from something that's not here. And what I'm getting at is like, my love for Star Wars is not here today. It's not in the Mandalorian. It's not in the prequels. It's sure shit not in the sequels. So I have to get over this, and maybe I can.
And it could be like for you and I. It's you have some fans out there. Like, I see older fans that are still into everything that they're getting.
They're happy.
And I think you have some that it's the Star Wars that you grew up with. And I think we're always in some ways going to be OT guys, even though I think we've gone into a lot of this stuff fairly open-minded. We want to love the new stuff, right?
Yeah.
But none of it's going to sort of spark the same way that the way the original trilogy did. And maybe it's just that's one of those things that you can't recapture, because it's tied to youth. It's tied to a different time. It's tied to a different way that we consumed culture. It's tied to the toys, which nowadays, the kids would find laughable, and it was a world where that was your focus. You didn't have a million different things vying for your attention.
Right.
So, you poured up so much of your dedication and fandom into this one thing. So,
like, I would come home from school and it's like, there wasn't streaming. There wasn't like even cable, right? So you put the recording of Return of the Jedi that you recorded from, TV that has the commercials, or maybe you like stop the commercials and then so a little bit is missing.
Yeah.
Do you ever remember that when you go see it at a friend's house and they were like, oh, I didn't know that scene exists,
Yeah.
Right. So it was just something that you like actively worked with, and it was the only thing you had, but the last, to your point, and now I'm going to ask you a big final question about the toys. The toys is such a big part of it. And what I keep hearing from, people in media is that these directors and producers now and writers and creatives, for them, it's just like they grew up with the toys. So this is their chance. So I say, great, break the timeline. Don't make this all interconnected. Like, right? Like, it doesn't all have to be Marvelized. Like, meaning like, if you wanted to be, let's say you wanted to like Marvel it and you want it to all be in one universe, great. Let's have a flashpoint. Let's have like, like in the comic books where Flash, and that, which is an idea that they're going to play with the Flash movies. He's going to go back in time, change his mom's murder, and then it sets off in a different course. Do that. Let these directors, let them do an Obi-Wan with Ewan McGregor, and he fights Darth Vader, like Darth Vader's the big bad, and maybe that sets everything in a different tone, you know, like, right? Like, let it have its own consequences. I just, again, I can't be forced to it. They're using every part of the buffalo, and I already had my favorite part of the buffalo. My question to you is, if I'm Lucasfilm and I go, like, Bruce, you're the Kevin Feige of Lucasfilm now. Like, or if I'm Disney, I am saying, okay, I'm putting Lucasfilm in your hands. What do you do moving forward with Obi-Wan and with everything else moving forward?
Well, I would definitely, what they're doing with the Disney Plus, that's fine. You can kind of do these offshoot series and things like that. Maybe you can continue that Return of the Jedi timeline, like we said, but you have to also start creating fresh, not, referencing stuff in Clone Wars, not referencing stuff in the sequel trilogy, because now that's also another well that they plan to draw from is, oh, now let's do a Rey series, let's do a Poe series, that kind of thing. You have to create some fresh stuff. And with the idea being, maybe create, again, worlds that we haven't seen with characters that we haven't seen, maybe, the through line is you still keep the Jedi Sith philosophy somehow in there. Or not, I don't know. I mean, that's the stuff that I find the most compelling. So you have that, but I think they have to create sort of a whole different blueprint that, you're still keeping the tech, you're still keeping the heart and the spirit of what the philosophy that George, tried to, build his initial trilogy around, have that ethos as part of it. But we need something fresh. We need something new. And that's the problem, is that everything feels like a retread.
100%. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking there's one thing that excites me about the trailer when they talk about, like, when I think the Inquisitor is talking about what a Jedi is. You don't know the Jedi is, like, what they're very committed. Whatever. If it's like a Jedi, if it's a show about Jedis and what, like, the Fallen Order, like the fallen Jedi, and like if Obi-Wan is going from world to world finding, like, underground, like, hidden Jedis that are still around, like, I'd be cool with that, where, like, so they're not trying to resuscitate, but, like, and they're not trying to, like, Mandalorian it, where it's like a Western where he's going and saving, like, a new person every week. I would love it if it's like, you guys, what do we do? Like, we're not supposed to show ourselves anymore. How do we, like, to me, it's the Clark Kent thing. Like, it's like, you have this guy who's a god who can save anyone at all times, but he can't because, like, he only has so many hours in the day and he has to work, like, and he has relationships. Like, I would love that, to see, like, what does the Jedi look like? Like, what was the impact to the Jedis? That's something I've always been curious about.
Yeah, and again, the challenge is, because, even as I hear myself talking about new, I'm like, I could hear people saying, well, then why didn't you like Last Jedi, right? But the whole thing is that, you create new, but you have to respect the lore. And that's the thing that I think is important. Respect the lore, but don't be a slave to the lore. And I feel like, and that's, I think, ultimately, to wrap things up, I think that's the problem that you and I have had with so much of this stuff, is that it's been, kind of a slave to, kind of repeating, and drawing from stuff, but not in a way that's genuinely creative, but in a way that's pandering, and you feel it. You just kind of feel that it's just a retread of the past.
It's so extreme. I mean, beat for beat, like, we're Rise of the Skywalker is like Empire and Return of the Jedi smushed. It's like a sandwich, right? Whereas Force Awakens is like beat for beat New Hope. Where Rian Johnson, like, with Last Jedi, like, it was a stretch. I mean, it was like listening to Leonard Cohen sing tenor, like, right? It's like, you're right. Does that make sense? Like, you're used to, like, I heard there was a secret chord, and for him to be like, David played and he played a lot, like, you'd be like, whoa, I'm not. That's not what you have such a great gravelly bass. Like, I want to hear that. That, right? Like, Rian Johnson, like, takes the world that we know, the very thing that you and I love, the Jedi, and pisses all over it and goes, like he bends the notes, he sends it in a different key. It's just not pleasant to listen to.
Yeah.
Like all the adventure stuff, like I could take or leave, I don't care. You know, like, okay, so that, like, that's interesting to have like a rogue rebel, which makes sense. Like that's, I don't, if I think about it bird's eye view, like that's interesting, right? Poe is like doing whatever he wants. And it's like, no, you're supposed to do what we say, but we're rebels. Like so you see like who's really in charge here? Like there's other interesting things, like ideas in that movie, but like that, like the Benicio del Toro's character when he's talking about like financing, he's like, yeah, well, they finance because I never always thought about that. Who finances the rebels?
Mhm.
Right. And he's like, no, everyone's financing everyone. It's all the same. No one really cares. Like no one on the ground really gives a shit about this. You know, you guys, like the Skywalkers, everyone cares, but like on the ground, we're just trying to like live. I thought that was kind of cool, but the Jedi stuff was so in a different key. And so that's where they really shot themselves in the foot. And then now, like it's pandering. It's not, like you're saying, it's not creative anymore. So bottom line, this trailer is a great conversation piece for us, a great starter, because I literally am ambivalent and conflicted at the same time. I'm both ambivalent and conflicted. And I'm like, I should feel something, but I don't. I just don't.
And this series, I think a lot is going to hinge on this show, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, do they recover some of the ground that they lost with the Book of Boba Fett? You know, regain some footing and, you know, get some momentum going forward, because they have a zillion other shows, none of which I really care about. But I think the goodwill for those shows is going to hinge on how well this one does. Or does this kind of, you know, leave yet another bad taste in the mouths of fans? I mean, I think they're in a really bad place because it's kind of lose-lose either way at this point, just because you have so many different strands of fandom that it's hard to please everyone. But I mean, you know, at the same time, you think theoretically to do one good show with a beloved character, it shouldn't be that hard. And yet, here we are.
So my final thought, I keep saying final for like the last 20 minutes. I think I'd be more excited when I'm more excited for when I see the first trailer to the Ahsoka show, because I don't have as much writing on that. Like, she was a great character in Clone Wars. She was a badass in Rebels, and now Rosario Dawson, like, oh my God, I love her to, you know, and I thought I think she's so good in The Mandalorian. That's what I care about. But Ewan McGregor, bottom line, it's too emotional. Like there's too much. I need more distance, like, because it spurs pain. My thesis, it spurs pain from The Last Jedi and Rise of the Skywalker. And then it makes me think about what a bad situation Lucasfilm is in. So I don't know. This was cool talking about. Like I don't. It would be cool. Like if fans feel the same way. Like if people are listening to this and are like, yeah, I feel the same. Like that'd be cool. Share it. If you don't, like, please, like, be like, no, they're doing an amazing job. Like some people love it. So great. Like tell us that. We want to hear about it.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know in the comments. And if you liked what we did, give us a like, subscribe, and hopefully in another couple of months, you know, we'll have the finished product. So maybe we can revisit it and be like, well, you know, either we called that one, or, hey, what a pleasant surprise. We'll see.
Yo, I'm all in. Like if it's, you know, I'm gonna watch it. Like I watched Hawkeye. Like,
yeah,
I'm not gonna watch Moonshadow. What's it called? What's it called? Moonshadow. I'm like, I'm being followed by a moon shadow. No, what is the show? The new Marvel show? Like, I don't care. You know, with Poe. With Oscar Isaac being an intense character with a voice. Like, didn't see that. Like I don't know. I'm not excited for this. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. May the force be with you.
And with you, my friend.
Thank you.